I was sitting in the doctor's office waiting room a while ago, and my phone was tucked away in my bag. It was intentional. I had already decided I wasn't going to touch it. So instead, I reached for a magazine on the side table. It was a 3 years old edition, but I didn't care. I just didn't want to be doing nothing. Welcome to the Always On Mute podcast, where we know not everyone was born with a mic in their hand or a megaphone in their mouth, but we still have something to say, because quiet is still a voice. Welcome to the Always On Mute podcast. I'm Antonia, and this is where quiet minds speak with intention. Today, I want to have a quick conversation about boredom, or at least that is what I thought I wanted to talk about. The longer I contemplate this idea, the more I realize this conversation isn't really about boredom at all. It's about what we do the moment life gets quiet. Why is it so hard to leave an empty moment empty? I don't think I wanted to read that magazine. I think I wanted a distraction. Once I noticed that, I started to see it, or rather notice it, everywhere. When I was waiting for the train, I would read the status board over and over and over. Nothing has changed in the last 90 seconds. I know that, but I look anyway. Sometimes I reach for my phone before I've even consciously decided that I am bored. My hand seems to know before my mind does. It made me think about how different waiting used to feel. Those of us who grew up before smartphones spent a lot of time with nothing to entertain us. We waited in long lines, and it was okay. We rode in the back seat staring out the window, and it was okay. We waited for someone to call the house phone. It was okay. We stood at the bus stops with nothing to scroll through. It was okay. I'm not saying that we loved it. No, we did not. We complained. We sighed. We counted cars. But boredom wasn't treated like an emergency. Now, the smallest empty moment feels like something has to fill it. A blackout made that especially clear for me. There was no Wi-Fi, no television. My phone still had some battery on it. However, I wasn't about to waste it because who knew how long the blackout would last for? So I chose to conserve it. That left me with a candle, a quiet room, my own thoughts. It wasn't peaceful. It was downright uncomfortable, and it surprised me. Now, don't get me wrong. If it were later in the night, it wouldn't have mattered because it would have been bedtime anyway, and then morning would soon come. However, it was early in the evening, wintertime, and you know how early it gets dark, right? So I was surprised because I realized the magazine, the train board, and my phone had never really been about passing the time. They were helping me avoid the feeling of having absolutely nothing competing for my attention. Now, I have a question for you. When you are waiting and there is nothing to do, what do you reach for first? Your phone, a magazine or book? Or do you start people watching? Or are you actually comfortable leaving that moment alone? Take a second and think about it. I would genuinely love to hear your answer in the comments. Let me know, because apparently I am not alone. Researchers from the University of Virginia and Harvard asked people to spend about 15 minutes alone with nothing but their thoughts. Most people didn't enjoy it. About 67% of the men and 25% of the women chose to give themselves a mild electric shock rather than continue being alone with their own thoughts. Can you imagine? One participant pressed the button 190 times. 190 times. And that was even after he said he didn't like the shock. Think about that for a second. That is insane. Not because the shock was enjoyable, but because for some people, it felt easier than being alone with their own thoughts. That doesn't mean we're all like that, but it does raise an interesting question. Have we become so accustomed to constant input that we have forgotten how to simply experience an unfilled moment? Sometimes the first thing we notice isn't boredom. It is ourselves. A worry we've been avoiding, a conversation we keep replaying, a decision we've been putting off, or maybe nothing dramatic happens at all. Maybe we have simply become so used to constant stimulation that quiet now feels unfamiliar. That realization changed the way I looked at the magazine. I wasn't trying to pass the time. I was trying to escape the moment. And here is the part that surprised me most. People often assume introverts must naturally be good at this because we enjoy being alone. But those are two completely different things. Research suggests introverts naturally become overstimulated more quickly than extroverts. That's why many of us seek quieter environments. We pull away when the world becomes too loud. But protecting yourself from too much stimulation is a very different skill from being comfortable when there's almost no stimulation at all. Avoiding overload and being at peace with overload aren't the same thing. I have spent a good number of years enjoying solitude, genuinely enjoying it. And I still reached for a 3-year-old magazine because I didn't know what to do with an empty moment. That distinction matters because if you're an introvert watching this and thinking, I like being alone, that doesn't necessarily mean you're comfortable when there's absolutely nothing asking for your attention. And if you meditate, you have probably experienced this already. One of the hardest parts of meditation isn't closing your eyes. It's noticing how quickly your mind wants something to grab onto. Maybe that is why meditation is called a practice. Not because silence comes naturally, but because most of us have forgotten how to stay there long enough to see what's on the other side. I have started experimenting with something, not forcing myself to enjoy boredom, just waiting a little longer before reaching for something. I let the train board stay unread. I leave the magazine on the table. I don't answer every urge the second it shows up. Not because I've mastered it. I haven't. Because I am curious. What happens after boredom if I didn't interrupt it? Maybe that's where the real question is. Maybe we have become so quick to escape boredom that we have never stayed long enough to discover what comes after it. Maybe it's an idea. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's a feeling we've been outrunning. Or maybe it's simply boredom. And that is okay too. The next time you find yourself with nothing pulling at your attention, don't ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask instead, what am I so quick to escape? If you enjoy thoughtful conversations like this, I would love to have you as part of this community. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment because I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts on this one. Give this video a like and share it with someone who could benefit from this conversation. Every like, comment, and share helps more people discover the channel and join the conversation. Thank you for being here today. Please remember, being quiet doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you choose your words with intention. Stay muted, stay mighty, and I will see you next time. Take care.